welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, Sorcerer Armanasul. Uh, Interesting. My computer decided to completely crash on me, which is funny. I just did a video on success, and all of a sudden, my computer just fucking takes a dump on me. But whatever. Uh, it just kind of pushes me back a little bit further on some of the stuff I was going to release and how I was going to do it and everything else. Save or back up any of that information, so I have to go back to notes to redo it. Today I'm going to do a video on psychology, practical sorcery employing psychology. Now, we don't want to get too deep down the rabbit hole with psychology. We're not trying to make nuts of ourselves. We're trying to come out of that. But we have certain aspects of psychology that we have to employ in our workings of what we're going to be doing. And in doing so, I had put together quite a few notes. I've been meaning to do this video for 2 weeks, although it's a little rough as to how I was going to do it, how I was going to present it, so forth and so on. So, without any further ado, let's get to it. All right. So, the very first thing that we want to focus on are the elemental makeup of man in 4 layers or 4 cells. Now, this is interesting that it follows a number of 7, and I'll get to that in a few. You have the 4 elemental cells, and then you have the 3 higher cells, which is equated to the supernal triad, so forth and so on. But first things first, let's start with this, okay? So, your first body is the earth body. It is the physical body. It is equated to the watcher and to the north. Now, earth represents stability of the temple, strength, vigor, sexual potency, which is the power of the body to create. Now, above or beyond that vibration is the water or the emotional body, which is equated to Anki, and also of the West, water. Fluidity and the ability to change states of being at will by understanding the tides of one's own emotional state. Certain things can offset our moods and so forth and so on. And we can have naturally, like you wake up in a mood or you go to bed in a certain mood or, whatever. But these emotional states of being affect us day in and day out. And they've often been equated to the moon and lunacy. And in this sense, like in the beginning when I was showing how to, the 4 agreements or the 4 pacts that you're making with each of the 4 quarters. And this empowers your magic of the Simon Necronomicon because you more directly connect with each one of the elemental gates. Because it's important to understand, and let me try to go into this in a simple way. I'm going to try to keep it stupid simple. These beings and these powers, they are both figurative, which means they're just in your head, and literal, meaning real and existing. Now, that's kind of like how the mind is divided into 2 halves, okay? Well, as a sorcerer, you harness the in-between, the middle path, as you want to call it, so forth and so on. Neither left nor right, but both. It's like when they say left-hand path, right-hand path, and I'm like, I use both my hands. The balanced individual. Things of this nature. And so, with each one of if you'll go back in my videos and watch what I was talking about with, summoning and working with each one individually, and when you would do it, at what moon phase, and so forth and so on, you will notice that the example of the ritual outline for it is simple. You can change it any way you want, but it's important that you individually connect yourself with each one of them. And the reason why is because they are a solid aspect of yourself. Okay? Not just something that's fancy and made up in the universe. It's not some spiritual hoodoo voodoo. These are real powers and real parts of self. And with this in mind, you're going to be working through them. And that's where all this comes in. Now, let us get back to the third one, which is fire. Fire is the sacred core, or the flame body. It is equated to the fire god and to the east. Now, down here, fire, transformational powers of the self, power of desire, and the core fire or fixed self, which is capable of consuming and then either changing it into a pure form to be used or destroying that which is not useful for the self. And that power abides within each of us, as do all of these, okay? Next one, air. Airy or etheric body, and lil, and it's of the south. Air, the lightest, least dense aspect of self, where all other elemental selves are combined by conscious, well thought out, formulated design, then sent in a cascading flow down to the other elemental bodies where it is brought into being within the other selves. This is why it's so important individually to get at them and then to bring them together into one aspect. It's the same reason why in ritual you call the four quarters or whatever. It is because they are elemental parts of yourself. They correspond to different aspects of self. And yes, you don't necessarily have to make an agreement with each, not really. But it's more powerful if you do so. Because, see, you're not just making an agreement or a pact with something invisible. You're making an agreement or a pact with yourself to empower yourself. It's like in psychology, or psychology of terms, like in the Necronomicon, when it talks about banishing and exorcising. Well, the first thought comes to mind is that there's some reason why you should be afraid. Oh, I've got to banish this because, it's an evil demon and it's going to hurt me. Oh, I've got to exorcise this because I'm possessed. What? Hell no. Hell no. That is not what that means. Allow me, if I may, to put this in plain fucking English. When you are exercising something, you are closing the doorway, the gateway, so that you can come back into your normal conscious awareness. You've got to open up a gate to work with the power of the force is great, but then you have to close it. The reason why is because those powers are already formulating and working through you, but you don't need that constant flow at you. It causes chaos and destruction. It can actually literally tear your life apart. And so to open yourself up to something is fine. But then close it off and go back to your normal day-to-day waking. That's what exercising is about. So when they talk about the exorcism of the crown of Banu, that's what they're talking about. Or any kind of against the possessing spirit, any of that. Okay? And now let's go there's an incantation against the ancient ones, which is my favorite. Once a year, when the great bear hangs from its tail, which, oh my goodness, is today, 5/18/18. What's so important about that? An incantation against the ancient ones. What are you actually doing? Because that's a form of banishing. What are you doing? You are banishing the negative aspects of self. You're not allowing what you don't want to come through. You're holding it back. And that's another example. But see, sometimes these books are written in ways that confuse and that rewire our thinking. And if you're not aware of this deeper way of thinking, you will find yourself becoming judgmental and demeaning your own intelligence through these methods and through these ways. So you have to be careful with that. And and that's part of why I do what I do, because forgive me, I don't try to come across like you're stupid, because that I don't for one second think any of you are stupid. I don't. But at the same time, I also am aware that authors and their language that they used, I don't care if this thing is thousands of years old or if it was just made up in the last 50 years, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the important thing is that it was written to protect itself. It was written for all kinds of reasons. But the way to read through it so that you can actually gain something from it is to understand the language that is employed, that is used, and then how to change it inside ourselves to where it becomes useful instead of useless. So you get that. Now, a much harder subject that I'm going to go into, and I'm probably going to banjax this all to shit and back, so please forgive me, but I'm going to try and do my best. Now, those are the four elemental selves, okay? Those are the four parts that are, on a lesser plane, okay? They, elemental planes. What is it? Malkut, the kingdom in High Magic and the Tree of Life, is shown with an X, which is four triangular pieces, which means the four selves of the earth, which are the four that we just went through. Okay. Now then, at the very top, together the crown, the supernals of three great ones, in whatever Onwin, three rays of Onwin, are all in there. However you pronounce it, I don't know and I don't care. They talk about the three great minds, or the three mental selves. Okay, so now that we've gotten past all these other ones, now it's time to get to the intellect, the genus part, the part that affects our thinking. You have the conscious, you have the subconscious, and you have the superconscious. Now, let us try to break this down if I may. Now, each of these relate to different aspects of ourselves, okay? Let's go with subconscious. So the subconscious is the deepest aspect of self. It's the underworld. It's what I refer to as the no, don't matter what I call it. Anyway, so from the subconscious, or the subconscious self, there are. Give me 1 minute here. Oh boy, I love it when I lose my notes. Oh well. Okay, so in the subconscious is equated to, in psychological terms, as the inner child. How or why the inner child, if it is so symbolic of the grave and death? Because a child comes closest from death into birth. It's a psychological thing. I couldn't truly put it into words if I wanted to. But the inner child reigns in this area. Because it is through connection with our inner child that we understand not to take everything so serious. That everything comes and goes. That it can be there 1 minute and gone the next. Which is how it equates to the subconscious. And how it can be enacted upon ourselves. Now then, let us go to the next part. The conscious aspect. This is like I'm making this video, okay? I kind of equate this to a trickster aspect, and here's why. I am what I think I am. I am what others think I am. And then I am what I truly am. What? Exactly. And it's that mixture. Like, I might think, okay, I'm just a guy. Or I'm a great sorcerer, or I'm this, or I'm that. You might think, that's a crazy dude. Or you might think, he's out there somewhere. All these different thoughts that you can have concern one another. But the conscious takes in all this, blends it together, and like a trickster, puts on a fucking show. For example, when you enter into ritual and you're about to start doing ritual work, you have to don the mask, you have to don the uniform, the mentality, and all this other stuff. Well, that is a mask of sorts. And the trickster aspect of self changes like that in accordance to what is needed. But it still is not the real deal. And then you have what I call the superconscious, which is the daemon, or genius, the genus, whatever. It was the prime intellect. It is the higher self. It's the thing that's not the inner child. That is not the trickster. It's the true form. It's the true self. It's the self that if you weren't physical, if you weren't this and you weren't that, that is what you would be. Well, the superconscious or the daemon is the aspect of self that comes the closest to being or existing to the source from which all things came from. And that being said, it is then the in between your conscious thinking and Kether, which is the crown, the orb above you, the sun, if you will, the 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 divine mind, the all is mind, the mind is all type thing in Hermeticism. Uh, and in this sense, the daemon is the aspect of self that you wish to awaken, that you wish to connect with, that you wish to become more like. But now at the same time, you can't forego the inner child. You can't forego the trickster self. So, how does this work? There is a union and a relationship between those three halves of our psyche. Because it's like having moods, but instead think of it as psychological processes that must occur. You have to be able to see things in a new light and then let it go, aka the inner child. You have to be able to be a trickster about it, knowing how to employ it, which mask to wear when. Ooh, see, that's how that works. But the daemon is the one who directs the other two and tells them what they need to know to be able to accomplish what it is that they do. So it is the higher thinking facility of the mind. Now, this does not mean that everything is in our fucking heads. Because long after we're dead and gone, and long before we were ever here upon this earth, there existed powers and forces. They had no need for masks, they had no need for names or none of this other stuff. It just was what it was. And one day, it will be that way again. That which is old shall be new, and that which is new shall be old, so forth and so on. This is the cycle of things. And in this sense, and hopefully I haven't lost any of you anywhere in there, in these senses, this is what we're employing and working with when we pick up the Necronomicon and we start going through it and we start doing the works from it and so forth and so on. It doesn't matter if it's a Simon Necronomicon or if it's any other system, but the Simon Necronomicon is what I, Waylon, love to introduce, what I love to show, what I love to teach about. But to be able to do this in a way that you're not bringing the influences and powers that you don't wish, because you don't want some spirit showing up all ready to kick your ass and destroy your life. You've got to change the way you look at things. You've got to change the way you think, the way you perceive, because perception is everything. It's not just about your belief, it's about your perception. If you see it a certain way, it becomes the way that you see it. So to think it, to see it, for it to be. See, those are the three phases. Those are exactly what I'm talking about with the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. And it's existential like that. All magic is like that. Well, hopefully this helps some. Hopefully this is not just one of those, just straight up like what the fuck videos, but it might be. But I wish each and every one of you peace, blessings, and power. Till next time.